for it to go live, and then you've got to
And
guess.
there it
Hey,
is.
there we go.
It's alive.
It's alive. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. It is season 3, episode 10. I'm your host, Josh Hayes, here with Chuck Manley. Scott is dying on his couch, I think.
Yes.
Right now. Hopefully he'll pull through and join us next week. If not, can I have your FJ? Just kidding. I don't want your FJ. We are here today with Dave Chesson. He is the creator of Kindlepreneur and the author of several nonfiction books that go along with using Amazon keywords. He is a U.S. Navy veteran, and today he talks about his journey with Kindlepreneur and nailing those really tricky Amazon keywords. So, Dave, thanks for taking some time out of your day to talk to us today.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to be here. It's been really crazy because back in the day, keywords were kind of like this negative word. But what's interesting enough is a lot of the big publishers are starting to realize the importance of Amazon's playing into their sales. And so I've been really fortunate to be a paid consultant to a lot of big time publishing companies as well, like New York Times bestsellers, and even some of my all-time favorites as a kid growing up, being able to work with the authors, just like, so right. I would say to all authors out there that, you may say to yourself, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, being able to get your book discovered on Amazon is becoming more and more important as there's more and more books showing up in the marketplace.
Yeah. And, when I first started out self-publishing back in 2014, I had no idea what keywords meant or how to use them. And I'm still slowly kind of feeling my way through, and I'm
it's a steep learning curve, man.
So maybe we should talk about a little bit about how this idea to nail these keywords kind of grew from your publishing, and how did you find that this was like a really big thing and a niche to tackle that challenge?
Yeah, well, so some of the things about myself is that, I used to be a nuclear engineer for the U.S. Navy. So I'm like a numbers data cruncher guy. And then I worked in diplomacy. So I'm more of like a words guy as well. So I've always looked at kind of my career and seen the two kind of come together to create kind of my background. I started off understanding online marketing by becoming a search engine optimization specialist, an SEOer. And for those that don't know what that is, it's the ability to convince a search engine like Google or Amazon that what you've created should be presented to the market. So when it comes to Google, writing articles that when people type it into Google, Google says, oh, this article by Dave Chesson should be right here for them to read. And the power of this is that for someone like me, I'm not going to lie, I don't have to be a Ernest Hemingway or some phenomenal writer. Because if I have the answer and I'm the first person that people see when they're searching, then ta-da,
right.
You get the clicks, you get the sales, you get the email subscriptions, you get all of that. Now, is my article the best in the world? No, I probably isn't. I think it's very good. I'd be a terrible person if I was like, I'm writing crap. But that's the beauty of it. We as a market, we're more likely to purchase something that we see first. Okay. So long as it meets what we're looking for, if it looks like it's right and it's right there in front of me, guess who gets to buy? And so the same thing as practice in my websites and to my books. Kindlepreneur gets over 150,000 readers per month. And I assure you that's not because I'm the greatest writer in the world. It's because you type anything into Google and it's probably going to show up.
Yeah.
So I started doing that first. And before I did books, and I had a whole bunch of these niche websites, and I had a whole, thousands of people going to these websites, reading articles. And I thought to myself, how do I monetize this better? How do I make more money from the people that are coming to these websites? And the idea was, well, why not package this whole website that's about a topic and make it into a book, and then use the website to, convince people to go to Amazon and buy it. But when I started doing that, what I realized at that point, and this was years ago, was Amazon's a search engine just like Google. People go to Amazon, they type something in, and Amazon chooses to show those people certain products. And whether you're at the top or you're at the bottom is a big difference on whether you make the sale. And to give you a little bit of statistics about it is that if you rank #1 in Amazon for a search, you can expect 27% of all people that type that word in, they're going to click on your book. But if you rank #2, only 13% will click on your book. And if you rank #3, 9%. And it quickly drops off.
Wow.
So understand that if 1,000 people per month type something into Amazon and you rank #1 for that result, you can expect 270 new people every month for just that keyword will click on your book and give it a check and see if it's the one they want. So understanding that principle and realizing how important that would be for my book set me on this conquest to try to figure out, all right, how does Amazon's algorithm work? And it's called the A9 algorithm. What can I do to convince it legitimately that my book should be shown? And when I did those things, all of a sudden the book sales took off, and they've stayed that way. The first book I ever wrote to this day still makes $700 every month, and it has for 4+ years.
Wow.
And that's the power of organics. And again, I'll say it like I do with the publishing companies that I work with, or the New York Times bestsellers who are fiction writers. This works for fiction as well. It's not just a nonfiction thing.
Now, I understand that Amazon is pretty stingy about the details they give out about how their inner workings and whatnot. How did you figure out how the algorithm functioned without any input from them?
Well, the funny thing is Amazon's stingy, but A9 is not. So A9 is the name of the algorithm that they use, and it's its own company. Now, granted, Amazon kind of owns it. I mean, but you have to look back at the history of it. And I think it was like, okay, I'm not going to give the year because I can't remember off the top of my head, but a long time ago, Amazon decided, hey, we need to make sure that the products that, that we have get to the right customers. Because let's face it, Amazon has everything. But if you couldn't find what you're looking for when you type something into the search bar, Amazon would go out of business quickly. So they hired this the Silicon Valley company called A9, and they said, all right, make sure that you show the right stuff. Well, A9 flat out tells you, okay, this is what we use. And it's kind of common sense stuff. Like, for example, one of the biggest reasons as to why a book will rank at the top over another one is because that book makes more money than the other one. Not total money, but for that keyword term. So say, for example, you write this epic sci-fi military one, and you rank for, we'll say, Space Marines, okay? If people type in Space Marines and they click and buy your book over somebody else's, then your book will rank better than the other one. And if you continuously have a higher conversion rate than the other books, then you're going to stay right at the top, and you're always going to make the sale. So this is, and if you think about it, isn't that what Amazon wants the most? I mean, A, to make more money, but B, show that when people search for this, this is the best product for them. And so you can start to break down that idea that all decisions on the A9 algorithm is specific to what makes the customer happier, and thus what makes Amazon more money. So then we start to look at reviews and review grades and click-through rates and all these other things that go into it. And now you can start to see that, yeah, Amazon might be kind of vague in what they say, but A9's like, we take pride in using X, Y, and Z to be able to get the right product to the right person.
So you just kind of cut out the middleman, went straight to the source to get the information. I like it.
And
Scott,
again, like
welcome.
I said,
I'm alive.
he's alive, but he's not dying at least.
I'm not dying. I may fall out of my chair. I'm very dizzy, but I didn't want to miss this, and I was watching it, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to jump in because I have something useful to say.
Nice. And I like the coffee there, buddy.
Oh yeah, coffee's good.
Amen to that.
I finished off my pot earlier today, and I've been trying to decide whether or not I want to start another pot of coffee, and then I get the shakes, and I'm like, I probably should not start the other pot.
I'm just having a gin and tonic.
Nice.
That's probably what I should be having. So. Well, I probably have a bunch of questions. I want to listen for a while, make sure I don't repeat stuff that's already been said. So I'll kind of just hang out in the background.
Cool, man. Well, one of the questions I had was, specific to keywords. When you're on when you set up Kindlepreneur, and I want to talk about setting that up as well. How do you go about determining keywords off the data that are the best ones to use, like for Space Marines? I mean, I think everybody that writes in that genre would put Space Marines as a keyword. Mm-hmm. So what would be your suggestion to make your keywords work better than just, say, putting Space Marine in there? What would give it that extra bump?
Well, there are a couple of things to it. Number one is understanding the numbers, right? So one of the big things is being able to say, all right, hey, guess what? 1,000 people per month do type in Space Marines. I think it's like 880 right now, but it's something like that. So now you know that that really is a word that Amazon shoppers shop for. The other thing is to ask yourself, you know, do the books that show up for that keyword, do they make money? So you want to look at their Amazon bestseller rank, ABSR. And we have a free calculator on kindlepreneur.com, or if you just type into Google Kindle calculator, it should show up #1. And you can put the Amazon bestseller rank into it, and then it will tell you how many books that day that author has sold. So you can quickly see, you know, hey, are books making money that show up for this term, or is it not? And a lot of people ask me, well, that if 1,000 people per month type that into Amazon, why isn't it making money? Shouldn't it just make money? And one thing I tell people is, let's face it, how many times do you type something into Amazon and immediately buy the first thing that shows up?
Right.
You usually kind of go through and change up your key, you know, your term that you type in. Like, okay, you might have started off with science fiction and been like, oh God, no, this isn't my kind of science fiction. Science, sci-fi, military. No, I've seen these books. All right, what kind of sci-fi military do I really like? It's like, I like Space Marines. Okay, I like Space Marines, but I'm really thinking of like, you know, Starship Troopers type Space Marines, right? Oh yeah, I love the bugs. How about bugs or horde? You know, these are words like, so Space Marine, horde, alien. And then next thing you know, I finally found the type of book that I'm really looking for, which is, you know, just like Old Man's War or something like that, right? Where it is Space Marines fighting a giant, large amount of aliens and not just like 1 or 2 spaceships or something like that. And so finally they find where they want to purchase. And so it's through research like that where you can go through and find out what is the qualifying term that is a buyer's term. So knowing how many people type it in, knowing that people actually buy it, and then finally knowing that the competition isn't so great that you can't get up to the top. So like when I say, for example, we're on Space Marines Horde Aliens, okay, or what is it? Bug Hunt. That's another one, right? That was kind of a cool term. You can look at it and you can say, wow, well, when I look at these books, and I know people type it into Amazon, none of them truly personify that kind of book. Their covers show like some guy standing there. Well, that doesn't say to me that he's fighting a bug, you know, mentality. However, though, if I go there and there's an amazing book, it's got high reviews, lots of sales, and it shows a picture of a Marine standing on a pyre, you know, like shooting down as a whole bunch of mandibles are coming up like near his legs. And, you know, we're talking like doom here, right? Okay, well, this guy's totally got it. Like his cover truly represents the mentality of the shopper who goes to Amazon and types this in. Like, I'm going to have a hard time beating that one.
Right.
So again, and why? Well, imagine that you have acknowledged that this term is a great term and you get your book up there. Now ask yourself, if you were the shopper, would you click on his book or would you click on your cover that maybe doesn't personify that? Okay. Maybe when you look at his book description, it is like, you know, he's got a quote from John Scalzi saying, I couldn't put this down. Like, you know, these sort of things are like, all right, you know what? That guy's going to get the sale no matter what I do. I'm probably taking second place on this. And what did we say about statistics, right? He's going to get 27% of the clicks. You're probably only going to get 13. Ask yourself, is that worth it? Again, you can start to build this down to where it's, I hate to say numbers game, but at least it gives you an understanding of where you stand and how to best position your book so that you are convincing the right market that this is the right book. And this comes into one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of authors make is that they're like, well, I'm a science fiction book. I should go after science fiction. I'm like, whoa, if somebody types in science fiction, you know that market doesn't know what they want yet. So that's not going to help you at all. But then they're like, well, okay, I'm this type of keyword. And it's like, well, nobody types that in. It's like, okay, now let's go to the middle here. People are typing it in. This does represent my book, and my book truly fits. And I call it kind of a symbiotic relationship. Don't go after keywords that don't truly fit what your cover personifies, what your book description truly, you know, envelops.
Got a quick question. Unless Chuck, did you have a question already?
No, go ahead.
So we're talking about keywords, but can you also do key phrases? Because I'd read someplace that you can actually pack a lot more than just one word. Like in Amazon, you get 7 key words, but actually those are 7 key phrases. And how do you maximize those?
So anytime I use the term keyword, I definitely don't mean the singular form. As a matter of fact, if your keyword is a single word, you're not doing it right. Because how can anybody truly describe the book they want with one word? Right. When I was working with a Romance Authors Association, we were, kind of created this example for them, is that like the best keyword we found for one of the books that we were working on was Victorian era second chance romance with baby. Now that's
just what I would have thought too.
And everybody's like, what? But if you look at it, there's a lot of people who are typing in second chance romance with baby. And by the way, you may say that's poor grammar, but who uses correct grammar when they're shopping? Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a second thought we have. Here I am, I'm typing in second chance romance because, and by the way, I didn't know anything about romance, so I had to start from scratch when I was working with these guys. But second chance romance is the type of book where, and I'm just going to call it how it is. Okay. The woman, her husband has left, whether he died or whether he just cheated on his wife or whatever and ran away. And she is now building back her life and she's looking for romance again. And they call that second chance romance. But there's a specific style of it that we were able to show in the numbers is even more popular. And it's something that denotes that the woman has a child. So she had a child with this other dude who left, and now she's trying to find romance, but it's got to be centered about mother and child finding the new romance coming in. And so what happened was, from the mentality, was people would type in second chance romance and then as an afterthought be like, oh, with baby, because like that's a big part of the story I want.
That'd be important.
Right? So you can start to see that these things will piece together, and that is the right story. So I'm like, hey, if that's your story, then you better have a cover that says, yeah, Victorian era. So they better be in Victorian getup, right?
Yeah.
And she's got a child. Now imagine, what story is that? Well, if you're in Victorian era and you have a child out of wedlock, or AKA no man around, oh, charlatan, hussy, terrible. Yeah. Society is looking down on her. And so instead, when you're working with your cover designer, be like, hey, these are the words that people would type in when they find my book. And that cover designer, if they are worth their weight in gold, will be immediately creating a cover that shows Victorian era woman holding her child while like evil looks, in the background from other ongoers being like, oh, such a hussy. But yet one man looking at her with interest. Just right there, that cover has personified everything that those people type in. And guess what? They're going to get the click. They're going to stick to the top, and they're going to continue to make the sales because they're right there in what I call the prime real estate.
So I'm guessing that not a lot of people that I've talked to or seen have thought of working their book cover from their keywords. That's something I never thought.
That's actually a really smart approach, I think.
Most people throw the book cover on afterwards, or vice versa.
See, I call it the symbiotic relationship. Once you understand that the market is truly looking for this, or these are the words that go through their mind as they shop on Amazon, then take those words. I'm not saying change your title, because titles are perfect, but perhaps look at your subtitle, okay? Or when we're in the fiction world, a little hard to do that, right? And I don't want to mess with art, but make sure that your cover personifies those words that your market is typing in. I would definitely look more towards, a Space Marine bug hunt, having mandibles reaching up out, while the Space Marine's in dire, shooting up, the onslaught, or some giant bug rearing out of the ground as he's like shooting up. That would be a much better cover for the market that I know exists and is looking to buy books of what I write than just randomly putting something together. And same thing with book descriptions. Now, I'm going to get back to book descriptions in a little bit, because there's a little bit of an argument out there from people saying that book descriptions don't matter when it comes to keywords. We'll get back to that. But let me answer your question more specifically. You had said, keyword or keywords. And so the first answer I had for that was, if you're just using one word, nope, multiple words. But here's the thing. Like you were saying, Amazon says that you can put in 7 keyword phrases. They give you a max of 50 characters in each one. A lot of people believe that you should just stuff as many words in there so that you fill up your 50 characters, because that will help. What I tell people is that if you've done your research and you know that this is a phrase that gets searches, okay, that people actually buy, and it's a good one, then just stick to it. Just use that phrase, and you got 7 of them. So use those 7 phrases. But what I'd say is don't add on more to it, because you're going to dilute the word density, as I call it. And the algorithm, the A9 algorithm, is going to be like, well, this guy says Victorian era secondhand romance with baby, Victorian dress, curtains. I don't know. I'm throwing in extra words.
That brings up a good question to me. So now computers and humans think differently. So I had read someplace about keywords that the words doesn't matter really what order, that they're just that all the words you put in there go in there and they can be selected individually, even though they're part of a phrase. Am I explaining that right?
Yes. So the way that I've seen, and again, now A9 doesn't give me this information, unlike what we talked about previously, but what I've seen from experimentation is that I have a much better ranking and a much better index capability if my phrase is the phrase. Okay. So while they may say, hey, baby was in the phrase, we can put it for the word baby, not as powerful as in the exact whole phrase of second chance romance with baby.
So you're looking for something somebody might actually type in the description.
That's right. If my selected keyword is second chance romance with baby, and somebody else writes in there, with child second chance romance. Okay, so there's two books here. My book will show up over the other one if somebody types in second chance romance with baby, because that's the exact phrase I used. So therefore, I'm a much better match. Gotcha. But we will both show up. But I have proven to the algorithm, the calculation, best way to look at it, the calculation, that I really was specific, and that's specifically what this person typed in. I'm probably the better fit. Now, like we said about rankings, though, is that maybe I was smarter and I chose the better keyword and this person wasn't. But if people type that phrase into Amazon and they see, they skip over my book and they choose this book, guess who's going to rank up at the top, though? Because the number one factor for the A9 algorithm is which one sells more, which one fits the market's desire, which comes back to our number one thing we talked about, which is the symbiotic relationship. So if your book cover doesn't personify any of that, okay, it doesn't even have a child in it, but this one does, well, regardless as to what word combination you use, this one's probably going to get the sale.
Right.
So what advice would you give to somebody who say they don't know any of this yet, say they're new, they sit down, they write a book, and then it ends up being kind of between genres. Like it's not exactly science fiction, not exactly fantasy like that. How would you advise them to approach their keyword selection?
Well, the funny thing is that if there are, so great artists, or what is it? Austin Kleon once wrote that book, Steal Like an Artist, right?
Right.
I'm a big fan that there's no, people might roll their eyes when I say this, but there's really no such thing as originality in the book writing world. This has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. You're not the first person to come up with it. And there are definitely books out there where we can always do the research and learn from them. When it comes to AMS advertisements, I love to find books. And one of the best blurbs I use for my AMS advertisement is it's like Old Man's War meets Starship Troopers, which you're allowed to do that in your blurbs for AMS. Okay. And that immediately says, hey, this really is, I like those two books. Okay. Yeah. This must be a good book. If the author registers that it's like those two, I'll give it a try. Like it's like authority by association.
Right.
So, if you are between genres, really dig deep. You're going to find some books that are a good connection, and then you can look at them, do some research, and figure out how it is that they sold. What are some of the things that they're using or thinking of? I'm not going to lie. I came up with Bug Hunt because I actually noticed that one of the sci-fi books writers that I really like wrote a book called Bug Hunt. I was like, huh, that's actually a really good term to describe the horde, alien horde thing. So sure enough, did my research, found out, I was like, wow, yeah, there really are a lot of people typing that in. Good for him. So look into those, see what they're using, see what they're doing, try to see if you can generate an idea based off of some of their previous success. And the other thing too is that I'm a big fan of AMS, Amazon Marketing Services, which is our ability to advertise our books to shoppers. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for any author, especially fiction, because, in Facebook ads, you have to convince somebody who's being entertained, you know, looking at cat videos and scrolling to see what their friends ate at during lunch, you got to not only convince them to leave that, you then got to convince them that they need to buy a book. And finally, you got to convince them to buy your book. In AMS, all I'm doing is just, people are already there. They're already looking for their next book. They've decided they want to buy a book. All I got to do is snipe them and get them to buy my book instead of the book they might have bought. That's so much easier. And the fact of the matter is that Amazon already has the market. So if you have that new genre book or that kind of, hey, it's in between, that's an opportunity to truly get your book in front of people, find out who they are, where they are, what they're liking, and then take action from there. So when people tell me I've got this great book and, you know, I know people love it when they read it, but I can't seem to get it in front of them, I'm like, seriously, throw it in front of AMS. You know, you're paying low cost per clicks and check out to see what works.
Yeah. Great. Good tip.
Do you run on the, and I want to kind of get into what Kindlepreneur does, like the apps and Kindle Spy and all that, but do you have a system where you can look at the AMS ads and go, this one's doing good, this one's not doing good, which one should I go with? Like what is your criteria for a good AMS ad? Because I've done a couple, but I don't really know, looking at the dashboard, hey, this one's doing better than this one is, and what should I go with?
Yeah. Well, so it really, that you're going to hate the answer, but it really depends, right? It's going to come down at kind of looking, it really depends on your genre. It depends on what you're writing about. It depends on your background, whether you have reviews or not, right? A book that has 0 reviews, I'm sorry, you could be a masterful AMS writer, but you're not going to get as many great conversions as the person who has like 105 stars. Okay. So there's just all these little things that happen, but I can give you guys a real example that just recently happened. Have you ever read or heard of the book Battlefield Earth by L. Ron Hubbard?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So just recently, I was a paid consultant for their publishing company called Galaxy Press. Right. And, the thing was that they were doing their AMS for that book and it was not converting, or they weren't really sure how well it was converting. They didn't think it was going well. So I looked at AMS and I said, all right, well, let's see what we're seeing here. Sure enough, they're getting lots of impressions. Okay. And for most people, that's probably the most maddening part, is getting impressions. And impressions are when people see your book on Amazon. And the way to combat that is a crap ton of keywords. Sometimes you're shotgunning like crazy, but they were doing that right. They had it good. The problem though was that when people would then go and find the book, they would click on it, but they wouldn't buy. They had they had a good conversion rate, which means to me is their book cover was good. Their keywords were good. They were convincing people this was neat. But when they got to the book sales page, something detracted them. Something stopped them from hitting the buy button. And when I looked at it, it was the book description. The book description was, and I don't want to sound terrible, but it was horrible. It was not written for the online shopper. It was written as almost a book report, okay, where it gave away too many details. It focused on characters I didn't care about. It didn't build up the big picture. So I said, all right, guys, I got this. I'm going to rewrite the book description for Battlefield Earth. And so I sat down and I wrote it. And you can, if you go to Amazon and just type in Battlefield Earth, you can check it out there. And we turned it from too many details to something that's more like all-encompassing, you know, like the bigger issue, you know, focusing on one character, not 6 of them. And then, you know, kind of tying it all together with a great call to action, which ended up with, you know, for the fate of the galaxy lies on Battlefield Earth. And they love that so much, they now use that as their main marketing tag for it. But what we did was I put it through PickFu. I had hundreds of people survey it, and sure enough, 66% voted mine over the other one. And when we then switched out the book description, they actually doubled their conversion rate. So they were making 2 times more from the original efforts. And again, this comes back to the symbiotic relationship that I just talked about, right? People were seeing the ads, so we were getting the book in front of the right people, and you could do that either organically through keywords or through paid AMS ads. Then they were interested. They saw the book cover, looked good. They clicked on it, and then they got to the book description and was like, let down. Nope. See ya. And they left. That was it. And that, you know, the coolest thing about AMS is we now actually see the numbers where we can say, hey, look, my conversion rate sucks. Sometimes I'll even do AMS just so I can collect that data and figure out where my problem is. So if I have high impressions and no clicks, that usually means my book cover needs to be tweaked. Or if I have a high amount of clicks but no buys, that means my book description is not selling the book. So it's a really neat situation that we finally have a way to see where we have an issue with our book.
Excellent.
I hate book descriptions. I always think that I've got it like really good in my head. And I'm like, oh yeah, people are going to buy this book. And then I write it and I'm like, I hate that book description. I really don't like it at all.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not going to lie. It would have been ridiculously hard for me if it had been my book. And it always is. I almost have like the worst situation when I try to write my own. So sitting down and rewriting L. Ron Hubbard's Battlefield Earth was like super easy because I'd read it when I was like 12 years old. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. So it was like the greatest thing ever to rewrite the book description to one of my top 5 favorite books ever.
Oh, yeah.
And they loved it so much that they're now reprinting it. And on the back cover is going to be my description. So like points.
Yeah, that's cool, awesome.
So just understand that, yeah, I'm with you on that. Writing your own is really hard. But as a reader, I was able to say, what was it about the book that I truly loved? What made it that I still remember it? And those are the things I should focus on. And again, when it comes to book descriptions, devil's in the details. Don't give too many details.
Right. You want more questions than answers when you're.
That's right. Drive me to suspense. Drive me to curiosity. Drive me in rage of love, whatever type of genre it is. But drive me to something emotional, not specific.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Emotional shoppers are better shoppers.
My wife knows that very well, and so does my daughter, who finds the little Anna and Elsa characters in the Walmart checkout line, and she's like, "Oh my god, I have to have them! They're my friends."
I was gonna say marketers know this the best.
That's right.
Speaking of book descriptions, I want to touch on our book sponsor this week for this episode, and that is Into the Breach by Jonathan Yanez and J.R. Castle. I think the link will work this week because I fixed it prior to this. So if it doesn't work, then I blame Scott because he's sick and dying. Into the Breach. Into the Breach is on pre-order right now for 99 cents. It will release March 15th. I'm not sure when the price is going to change, but here is the book description. You know that we come in peace. You know that we come in peace thing. Apparently, they didn't get the memo. Frank and Marine Space Corps 1 find themselves across the galaxy in a WWE SmackDown with the legions of a boss-level villain. But the party's just getting started. He donned the mantle of a celestial knight to impress a girl, well, an empress. Now Destiny's calling in a debt, a lightning-paced military fantasy full of outlandish comedy and impossible situations that will have you hailing for these Marines from the get-go. For fans of Green Lantern and the Stargate Universe, for a good time, check out Into the Breach. Gateway to the Galaxy Book 1. Looks like I can definitely see the Green Lantern vibe on the cover. So maybe in the Chuck and I, we were talking about this before. It almost seems like kind of a lit RPG book, but almost maybe kind of superhero-esque. So it'll be interesting to see where Amazon finally centers in on the categories, because right now it's in colonization and space exploration. So we'll see. But Jonathan Yanez, he's a great fan of the show. Great guy. He's writing several books, or a book in the Galaxy's Edge project with Scott and I and Nick Cole and Jason Onspach, and does really good work on his own. So it'll be good to see what that book does when it finally come out. If the link doesn't work, let me know and I'll change it.
It worked for me.
Oh, okay, good.
But that is the thing. I probably just broke it when I tried to use it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Scott.
It'd be curious to know what if we could maybe talk about this book description if we wanted to chime in on, give her thoughts or not. It doesn't matter.
Actually, I just took notes on what I heard, and if you guys don't mind, I'd love to jump in on kind of.
Yeah, let's
as long as Jonathan
analyze this. Oh, Jonathan's not here to defend himself. So
Well, no, I'm gonna say flat out, this guy did a way above average on his book description. He knocked out a whole bunch of very important things that I think we should say. Number one is he's got a great hook. That first sentence is the most important sentence to any book description. And the reason being is that when we're on Amazon, we got to click the little button to see more, right? Just to see the rest of the book description. So that first sentence should get about 80% of your focus and time when you're writing it, because, well, 80% of anybody who reads the whole book description, only 80% are going to see that first sentence. So make it as good as possible. And the way he wrote it was kind of like, it set the tone. It kind of had me questioning. Yeah, I actually wanted to click to see more. So he did a great job on that hook. I love that he used gamer terms. It was almost a way in his book description that he started to specifically recognize his target demographic. He said something about boss level, right?
Right, boss level villain.
Right. Instead of just saying a villain or some super villain or something like that, he said boss level, which means he already put in my mind that there's a certain demographic. And since I love video game, lit RPG, sure. But video game books or, Ready Player One and those sorts of things, like he got my attention. Or by the way, I'm reading that new, not new, but Off to Be a Wizard or something like that.
Yeah.
Love it, right? But
he's Scott Myers.
Yeah, Scott Myers. Man, I want to meet that guy and high five him. Great book. So, but again, he did the same thing in his book description. I knew immediately this is like gamers, like nerds. And I was like, this is my people. All right. So he got me with that because he quantified his target market, his demographic with that one term of boss level. Okay. So mad props to him on that. Another thing too is, he brought up the Space Marines. So I know that there's, this is a genre that I do enjoy, specifically sci-fi military, aka Space Marines. He has a little bit of humor in there, so I'm feeling that. And I also love at the end that he gave what we talked about a couple minutes ago, which was that, relationship authority, where he was like, hey, if you like Green Lantern and you like, what was the other one? Stargate, right? Then you're going to love this. Well, if I happen to be a Green Lantern fan, Stargate, then you just sold me. I'm buying it. But another thing is that I'm not going to lie. I actually haven't ever watched Stargate, the TV show, just the movie.
It's been a while since I watched it. Yeah.
But what I do know is I know what that is. And I know that it's well loved, especially in the sci-fi world. And I sometimes kick myself for not having watched it, And I do know Green Lantern, but we're not talking about the movie. No. Don't make the suit green. Don't make it animated. Oh, I love Deadpool though. But again, I'm able to quickly combine those stories and say, yeah, that kind of does sound good. So he just gave me this last closing argument that makes me say to myself, I kind of got a feel for what this is. That kind of sounds interesting. I know it's the right demographic, because that's my style. And he used my gamer terms. So I think this is a very persuasive book description. The only thing that I would say he needed to add to it is kind of build up the importance of the story. So I think that he introduced it well. He kind of brought up some cool things, but what's the point, right? What is the point to this book? Granted, fiction is about entertainment, but man, I need to know, there's some mounting, give me a hint of what the climax is. Something that's budgeting.
What's at stake?
Right.
Yeah, what's the big bad? What's at stake? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a big bad, but he didn't go in to tell me seriously, if the big bad, wins, then,
what's he up to?
Exactly. So, and I think that should have been a critical last point before he then says the whole, if you like this and this, you're going to love this. Give me the point. And at that point, I think he'll have a much better book description. But again, that's way above average. I loved how he wrote that. And most people forget the demographic part, and he nailed it. So
I also had one other observation, and you can comment on this if you want, is his sentences, each segment of his description is fairly short.
Yes.
And you'll see some book descriptions where it's 7 sentences in a paragraph and then another giant paragraph and stuff. But I had read someplace that having more white space makes you skim through it quicker.
Yes.
Anything to that?
Yeah. So this is a major tactic to blogging, and what you want to do is make it feel easy to the reader. Because let's face it, when we're online shopping, we're the laziest people in the world. Okay, we want to make it feel easy to the reader.
I'm not lazy anyway.
Well, 7 sentences in a block feels like a lot of work, but if you catch yourself reading the first sentence, because it's just right there, you're like, hey, that's kind of cool, and then you read the second, and then you read all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm almost done with this thing. And I've already read through it. I'm just going to finish all the way through. So we want to whet the appetite of the lazy reader and kind of break it out into, 1, 2, 3 sentences at most. Some of the grammar nerds out there are going to be like, Dave, I hate you for saying that, but marketing.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is don't forget you can use HTML code for your book description. Amazon has certain code that you can use. We have a full free tool on Kindlepreneur. Just type in like book description tool, and you can type in your book description in there, highlight, and then click the button to make it look the way you want. So you don't have to be an HTML coder, and form your book description so it looks the way you want it on Amazon. Then you just click get my code, copy and paste it into KDP, and it will look exactly the way you saw it. I say that that's very important to bold the big things that you want to stick out in people's minds. You know, that last sentence at the end, that's a good call to action, right? Green Lantern and Stargate. You might want to bold that. You can also make the words bigger. Maybe the first sentence should be bigger so it really grabs the attention. Maybe you want to bold a particular thing. But again, these are very important aspects that help the laziest of reader just kind of quickly glance and be like, whoa, super boss. Wait, what? Or boss level. Hold on. All right, let me go back and read this thing because I was totally not going to read it.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
I was just going to skip to the end, but now I guess.
Hey, but again, he nailed it with that end one. So if the person just skips to the end, then cha-ching, good for him. And the other thing too is that now that I know that this is a gamer book, I know that this is, or well, not gamer book, but it's tailoring towards my gamer needs, and I can then say, hey, this is a Green Lantern meets this. If I decide to buy, I'm probably going to be a much happier customer, which means in the end you're going to get better reviews because you have almost like quantified who your target reader is, and you're going to get less of a chance of that person who was like, oh, I thought this was going to be like Firefly, and now this was not at all. There was no anti-hero. Like, what the heck? 1 star, burn him.
Burn them.
Space Cowboys. Jeez. But that's the thing, though, is that if you start to quantify who your demographic is and you deliver a story that's based off of the description you create, you're going to have happier customers, and happier customers leave better reviews. Better reviews help you to sell more books.
So
Excellent.
you lay all that out in Kindlepreneur, and you also have you spoke about the description resource, the tool that will allow you to do it, and you have KDP Rocket and Kindle Spy. Do you want to talk a little bit about those and what those programs can do for authors that kind of dumb all this process down a little bit?
Sure. Well, actually, I have KDP Rocket, but KD Spy is owned by Wesley Atkins. And actually they're kind of a competitor, but not really. So KDP Rocket is the software that uses Amazon's own API. And Amazon's, an API is kind of like the backdoor key. So we actually use their information. And what it does is it helps you to find the keywords that people type in. So that's how I was able to find, like, check to make sure if bug hunt was a good one, find Victorian era, second chance romance with baby. I never would have thought of any of that stuff, but it's like, hey, this is what people type in. And then it tells you exactly that. How many books rank for this? How much money do the top books that show up in the results make? And it tells you the estimated Amazon searches per month, which is huge. And it gives you a competitor score. But it also helps you to find categories. It does your AMS keywords. So we talked about you need a whole bunch of keywords, and it does this system that pulls words that Amazon associates as good words for your book. And it creates a large list for you to be able to create more AMS advertisement quickly. But basically, it does all this that helps authors to understand what's really going on in Amazon. I sometimes call it like the program that helps you to pull back the curtain and see the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain,
Right.
pulling the levers.
Right.
No more do we have to guess and hope, oh man, I hope this keyword's going to, actually gets people to search, or that this is a keyword that makes money. It's just like, no, you just click and it says right there. One of the big things that's important, like, for example, no other software does the Amazon searches per month with everything we talked about. So if, like, for example, you're using a software, it may say, hey, look, this keyword, there's a lot of money being made for it. And there are a lot, but it's low competition. You may be under the idea that that's a perfect keyword. But thanks to our Amazon searches per month, it would say, like, no, nobody searches that keyword. That's a terrible idea. See, because the fact is, you may say, but I don't get it. That keyword exists and those books are making sales. So what gives? And it's like, well, that's because those books may show up for that keyword. Yes, but they're making money from other things. And you can tell because the Amazon searches per month are so low, that keyword's not a part of them making money. That keyword's just there because some random dude or two typed it in once. So, so yeah, a very important number to understand. I think it's one of the most important numbers to understand, because now, you no longer have to guess and hope. You can find things like, second chance romance with baby, with spelling errors, with grammar errors, because let's face it, we all suck.
Space Marine bug hunt with baby.
Yeah, bug hunt with baby. Boy, that sounds like quite the genre.
It's definitely underserved for sure.
I agree. So there's a good thing. The other thing I just wanted to bring up on the categories, I heard one of you guys say, waiting for the category to get indexed, right?
Right.
For a book. You guys do know that you can actually get Amazon to actively add you to 10 categories?
I've heard you have to email them or something, don't you?
The what?
You have to email them and request it.
That's right. Or get them to call you, and they'll call you within a second. I've got a video on YouTube that I actually do the process right there, and I get them to call me. Yeah. And within seconds, my book is now listed for 10 ebook categories and 10 book categories. It is totally cool with them. They have their own page for it. So don't think I'm like totally ruining the system. What this allows me to do is take control and get my book in the most niche subcategories I want, and get in multiples. You may say, well, that's overkill. I'm like, look, that category might have been super easy today, but tomorrow it sucks because some great book showed up in it. But if I have 10 of them, at some point, I might actually be staying in the bestseller category. It's just a different category every day. Right. So it's very important to target multiples. So one of the things we developed on KDP Rocket, it's a new feature. It just came out about 2 weeks ago. And what you do is you go in and you type in, say, a description of your book. And KDP Rocket will immediately pull all the subcategories that all those books show up for. So now you have a list of these categories. But my favorite thing is that it finds out the ABSR, the #1 book for each category. And then it tells you, hey, if you want to be the #1 best-selling book for this category, all you got to do is sell this many books today. Like, that's it. So now,
that's it. You're good.
That's it. Like, what's crazy about it though, is you can quickly generate a list of like 40, 50, 60 different subcategory strings. And then you can arrange them from easiest to hardest to be a bestseller. And now you at least have a target.
Right.
And what's really powerful about that, especially for the new author, is that they may have been selecting this category and it was like, yeah, the lowest amount of books you need to sell in a day ever was like 82. Like, you're never going to be a bestseller. So in this case, though, you can find a pertinent category and be like, well, all I got to do is sell 7 books today and voila, I hit it. Yay. So we created that to just kind of quickly help people. And again, I've got the video, or if you just type in like Amazon categories into Google, my article will show up and it will show you how to do that. And it's step-by-step on just how to actively get Amazon to change your categories and add categories for you.
I've heard about the emailing, but I didn't know you could call them. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, the way that it works is that there's a link and it's in the article and it's in the video. It's a special link. You got to click it. Then it will say, log into your KDP. Okay. Because it goes through your KDP. That's how they work it. So you can't just be spamming them. You log into your KDP and then it immediately opens this window and you say, there's a couple of drop-down boxes that you basically choose. Most of it's self-explanatory, but we got it in the article. And then finally at the end, it says, hey, do you want to send us a message that, to tell us which books you want to add or which categories you want to add. And you can do that. And you just need to make sure to have some information like your book's title, ASIN number, and the strings you want it to be added to. Or if you're in the United States or you have a US phone number, just click and say, call me. And then they'll, put in your number, click it. And within seconds, they'll call you immediately. It's a real person. And you can be like, hey, great. Yeah. So I would like my book, such and such, to be added to such and such string. And by the time you click hang up, your book's now added.
Wow.
So, just like
That's
that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's one of those things like a lot of authors just don't know about. And the other thing
that help you, if you narrow down the category like that, that will help your keywords do more work. Because if you're just in, like, say, science fiction adventure, you're not really narrowed down in that category. And if you narrow down the category that you're in, your keywords will actually do more work for you because you're in a narrower focus now.
Well, the more narrow
adventure with baby.
Yeah, with baby. That's right. Space babies. You know, the way that it works is that there's two ways that people shop on Amazon. The first way is they go to the search bar at the top, they type something in, they hit search, and then Amazon presents them with a list of results. The other way, and this is more, you know, this is more useful for fiction, is that certain people have certain categories they just love. You know, like I totally go to the Space Marines category and I check for my, you know, the next fix of Space Marine bug hunt that I want. And actually, I think there's a new category. Amazon's always adding new categories, by the way. Wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if bug hunt was a category now or something.
Yeah,
Probably is.
It probably is. But you know, the more niche you get in the category, the more, you know, the higher chance you'll get of a bestseller rank, but also, you know, the less amount of chance that you're going to get those fans that go to that category to look for the next book. Luckily, we got 10 categories to choose from. So when I'm choosing categories, I choose a couple that I know I can be a bestseller for or have a higher chance towards. And then I choose a bunch of categories where I'm like, I know my genre loves that category. And if I'm really making some sales and I'm doing some great things, then I'm at least going to show up in there and I'm going to make more sales as well. Now, the bestseller tag, a lot of people are like, okay, it's like whatever, you know, like we've all hit the bestseller tag. That doesn't matter. But for me in marketing, I think it's very important. Because when people do a keyword search for, say they type in Space Marines, and my book might not be number 2 or 1 or anything, it might be number 6. But if it's a bestseller in its category, it gets that bestseller mark, and that mark sticks out. And when that happens, there's going to be a higher chance that people are going to stop scrolling and look at my book because it's marked with that social proof.
Right.
And I'm probably going to get the click. So when I get the click, I've now proven to Amazon that I am the better selection. And so what you're going to ultimately see is that your book's rankings and keywords will start to increase, and you're going to get more sales just because you had that mark, the bestseller tag, that makes your book stick out. So
do you think the average consumer stops and looks at that bestseller and goes down and reads the fine print for which category, or they just see bestseller and go, hey, it looks cool, and they click on it?
Bestseller and just click on it, you know. And actually what's funny is Amazon sometimes doesn't even put that little fine print in there. I think they're A/B testing because I've seen it where it's there and I've seen it where it's not. But the biggest thing though is your book's the only one with the tag in that search result. Your book is going to get noticed, and your book is going to get the higher chance of the click. And when that happens, like we said way in the beginning of this, that book's going to rise to the top, and you're now going to get more sales because instead of like 6%, you're now at 13% or 27%.
One of our guests wants to know if they have a mediocre seller tag.
I'd tag all my books with that. Just cause.
You gotta aim for the mediocre crowd or something.
Well, we are coming to the end of the show, and I'm gonna have to probably watch this like 2 or 3 times to absorb all the information.
A lot of great information.
You presented, which was amazing, and thank you so much for spending the time to dumb it down for a couple of guys that have barely can tie their own shoes. When
we're banging rocks together over here.
Yeah.
Hey, no worries. Let me tell you, I can't share the names of the publishing companies that I've worked with, but you'd be surprised how much less they know, and they're making millions of dollars. You know, like I mean, we're talking a giant company, and they're like, wait, what? You know, like, oh, we heard about this AMS thing. What is that? It's like, are you guys serious? You guys are professionals. You know,
you're like, professionals.
I mean, this is your job. This isn't a hobby. You know, you guys haven't taken the time. AMS has been around for a while. They're like, well, we think it might be good, but we're just, you know, we're thinking about these more traditional things. And I'm like, you called me because you're not thinking about traditional anymore. Like, come on, guys. Jeez.
Right.
Working with because I haven't said any names, and then again, Galaxy Press is amazing. So you know they're not a part of this group when I say this, but working with publishers is sometimes one of the most maddening things ever because like I get why they've been so slow to adopt Amazon, and I get why they're so slow about adopting self-publishers, because to get them to do anything, even if you come in and be like, all right, if you do this, you'll double your money and you'll actually reduce your costs. They're like, oh, okay, well, we need to really think about that. I'm like,
well, what's the thing about?
Why would you think about that?
Like, well, and then I found there's a whole bunch of politics in publishing companies, you know, like where like you may find out that the person you just said this to, that's supposedly like the person in charge, they're not. And it's actually their job that you just pointed out. Like,
nice.
Like, and so now they're going to shield it. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. It's like, why? It's like, because I just got this whole funding. Anyways, it is a headache. So believe me, if you guys are like, oh man, this is new to me, believe me, publishers are like, so there's this thing called Amazon.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Guess what? They don't just sell products, they sell books.
Yeah.
It kind of started out that way.
Well, yeah, Amazon was a bookstore. That was what it was first. And yeah, now they're the A to Z store. Everything from A to Z. That's why the little arrow goes from A to Z in their logo.
I always thought it was a smiley face.
I think it's adopted that, but no, it's supposed to represent everything from A to Z. Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm just a big dummy.
Subliminal trick.
Yeah, I remember when Amazon first launched as a bookstore, and everybody's like, that won't last. Nobody wants to buy books online. You want to pick them up and look at them in the store.
Yeah,
and they're all wrong now.
Yeah, amen to that. And the other thing too is that I know that we're coming up on our time, but I just want to put one thing out to authors to keep in mind. All right. We focus on Amazon, and heck, the title of my website is Kindlepreneur. I get it. Okay. That was more of it sounds better, but what we as marketers need to understand is the other markets are starting to rise. Yeah. So one of the things you should really do is that you should really start to give iTunes, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo a little bit more attention. The reason being is that just recently, Kobo signed a deal with Walmart. So now all books and ebooks sold in Walmart are going to be through Kobo. Imagine how many new shopping accounts are going to be opened in Kobo because of this. And now imagine how many authors out there have given Kobo no attention, right? Yeah. 0 reviews. Like nobody's working to get reviews for Kobo. I mean, you just get 2 reviews and you're already like in the top 0.1% of the market. Just focusing on their book description, on their keywords. These are opportunities where it's like the wild, wild west of Kobo and nobody's doing it. And Barnes & Noble and iTunes, you may say to yourself, well, yeah, but they've been around, but most authors don't even focus on those either. Tell me, when's the last time you looked at your Barnes & Noble book and asked, how many reviews you got and tried to work to get them increased?
Yeah, never.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet
2 years ago, one time.
Right. But iTunes just devoted millions of dollars towards their iBookstores, which they're now calling it books. They're getting rid of the whole I part. Right. And, they're making a gain. Playster is a new market that's going to be kind of fighting with Audible. And Playster is a great opportunity as well. So the key thing is that authors just need to understand that these markets are realizing, okay, Amazon's been like the king of the hill here. And they're starting to get involved. And I would suggest to all authors, start to look at them, start to give those markets just a little bit love, and just a little bit will get you a lot more than that same little bit in Amazon. So position your book better for when those markets take off by just giving a little love.
So I'm curious about that. Along that line of thought. So I have one book that's wide, and it's the beginning of a series, and it's basically a free loss leader. And I have it up through direct to digital, and it goes to the different sites through there. But specifically, when you look at keywords and making Amazon's algorithms find your book when people are searching for it, do Kobo and iTunes have similar programs or algorithms to make people find your books on their sites? And how do you take advantage of those? Because I'm trying to think in Draft Digital if there's a way to put keywords in there. I don't. It's been so long since I've been on there. I haven't.
So what I did, and I love Draft Digital. I think Draft Digital is infinitely better than Smashwords. I'm going to go on the record. I do have an article that actually compares the two, and I think you just get so much more with Draft Digital. But what I did do though was that I took my books off of Draft to Digital only for those 3 markets, and then I put them onto those markets myself. One of the biggest things that I realized was, 4 years ago when I had like my first book out and I had all these other ones, I got lazy and I put it on Smashwords and Draft to Digital, and I went back and I realized I've lost $17,000 in just the commission to those groups because I didn't take the time to put it on the other markets myself.
Oh,
And
wow.
about like 97% of my sales were in Kobo, iTunes, and Barnes & Noble. So I would be, if I had just put those books specifically into those markets and then put those books into Draft Digital for the rest of the other markets or so, I would have $16,000 more.
Yeah. And I know that Kobo and Barnes and Noble, it's fairly easy to upload your own book to those.
Yes.
iTunes, in my experience, has been like trying to pull your own eyeballs out with a spoon or something.
Don't get me wrong. I 100% agree with you on that. As a matter of fact, like I'm a tech savvy guy and I'm just like, oh, you guys suck so bad. Like I was getting frustrated. They have improved it a lot though. They did make some major changes about 2 weeks ago. So it's not as bad, but they still got a long way to go. They're trying to pull things out of iTunes, whereas iTunes was supposed to be the headquarters of everything. And then you got, iBooks, and then you got this and that and this and that. They're now just removing everything out of iTunes and just making iTunes Music. That's making the publishing process just a little bit easier and better. But what you'll find though, is that when you go to publish those books specifically on those markets, you're going to find opportunities where you wouldn't have through Draft to Digital. For example, in iTunes, you can actually take screen capture, of certain pages in your book and put it so that it's offered as something people can flip through on the shopping cart. Now, you may say to yourself, well, that's bogus, right? Because I'm a fiction book. It's not like I have awesome pictures inside my fiction book. I'm like, yeah, but guess what? That also makes your book stand out more. And one thing I can't say for sure about iTunes algorithm or Barnes and Noble's algorithm, but I will say that you can usually assume that more effort being put into the sales page is usually a good indication to the algorithm that your book is a better chance of a better sale. If you didn't take the opportunity to show those pictures, and you use the same kind of like formatting that, is used by like 80% of the other books, then it kind of knows that you didn't put as much effort. So just taking that effort and creating those little things that you're going to find when you do it by hand, you're going to have a better stance in those markets. And again, just, we work to get Amazon reviews. Just give a little bit of work to get like 5 reviews on Barnes and Noble. You'll already be beating out 99.9% of the market.
Right.
That is always really disheartening when you flip over to Nook or something and you see your one review and on Amazon you got like 50 or something. It's kind of discouraging, I guess. So. Right.
So again, to recap on that is that just if you have a couple fans or so, please put in the link or maybe even a special push just for Barnes and Noble market for a little bit. If you have an email list, get 5 or 6 reviews. And that will show the Barnes & Noble algorithm that people like your book compared to your competitors who only have like 2. Because let's face it, we're all the same way.
Right.
And that little extra, as Barnes & Noble or iTunes starts to pick up more market share and more sales, that little extra you put in now will help your books to grow in the future.
That's great.
Things to think
Dave,
about.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, man, and sharing your knowledge with us. It was great to have you on, and everybody that was hanging out with us in the live chat. Thanks for spending your Monday morning or an hour of your Monday morning, which is so weird because daylight savings time screwed me up today, and I was so behind the curve. But I think it's gonna grow on me because my kids slept in like an extra hour. So next Monday we've got a double show, a double header as it were. We're gonna have Drew Avery back on, and I can't pronounce his name correctly. He's from Sri Lanka. He just got a tour deal, and I think he's the highest, the biggest. He's got the biggest deal from any author in Sri Lanka for sci-fi publishing, for Tor publishing. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation to have. Hang out with us for just a minute, Dave, while we wrap up, and then we'll do a little post show and go about our days. But everybody, make sure you are checking out our site. We've got the Reader's Choice Awards still open. If you have a book that you want to nominate, go to the website and nominate there. This month, at the end of the month, we're going to have Covers for a Cure 2 with Christian Calais. I'm in the process of updating the site. But I did post on our Facebook page for Covers for a Cure the covers that Christian has provided. And again, those proceeds are going to go to the American Diabetes Association as a donation. And also there's 4 covers and then an editing package that Christian's editor has graciously donated. So I think was it Ken McClellan that got the publishing pack from Ellen last year, and his book Princess Grace of Earth is published. Yep. And he got a good cover from Tom Edwards. So it's a good time. It's a fun little event. So if you've got a spare hour and some change, you want to buy us a cover or put a bid on, come hang out with us. The link is on the website, and then we'll get some more information as we get closer to there. So again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. Make sure you come back next week. We're going to talk about some reading. We're going to talk about some writing, and of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Have a great Monday.
Later, guys.